no, I mean, when you think about COVID and the working from home situation, that must have brought a whole series of issues that are new to this environment that probably the world hasn't dealt with before. An organization might have used you to say, how do we best deal with those situations that are related to the working from home environment? Yeah?
Absolutely. We saw poor managers go through a nightmare where they had no training for remote management. Suddenly they were thrust into not just temporary remote management, ongoing. And so, we had some off-air chats about micromanagement that many of them fell into. In fact, some recent research, early COVID, showed 40% of them said they didn't know how, they weren't confident to manage remotely. And it was the common problem that they fell into micromanaging, really trying to help the worker by being so attentive. And the worker then feeling suffocated, the best will in the world, but it really backfired. And so there was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of breakdown of communication, there was a lot of chaos and strife. And then there were some gems that came out of that flexibility that workers were already demanding, and workers were already starting to do what we call job crafting, which is a fascinating concept as well, that it took off during COVID as well. It's where the worker, in an informal way, starts to craft or change or shape or mould their work. And it's got many different layers.
Their job description, for example.
Not so much the description.
When you say their work,
it's the way they do their work.
The way they execute their role.
Yeah. So there's a relational job crafting. For instance, if you want to get some information about your customer or your stakeholder, and you feel blocked by a certain person that you're meant to be talking to get that information, when you go around that person to someone else to get the right information, that's relational job crafting to get the right outcome. That a worker can pivot, if you like, and that was the word that came out a lot in COVID, and they pivot in their role. So it's not changing their job description, it's finding better, smarter, more interesting, more engaging ways of doing the job.
Taking into account technology changes, the working from home situation, all these environmental changes. We should probably be able to do our job this way is better or more efficient. Yeah, sure.
That's right.
Sure.
Even STEM workers, science, tech, education, and maths workers, a big cohort of women found that they were really pressured with work from home and trying to do domestic work as well. So they showed their home situation to their worker. They stopped trying to hide it. They declared it. They said that these are the challenges. These are why we're working around school hours. They were so much more productive that they then required to continue the flexibility because they'd found ways of working, crafting around their job to make it work better. They got brilliant results. They were able to show why. And that was a great change that came through. And there were some wonderful changes in the way we do work, including, of course, the worker now wanting to be seen as a person before they're a worker. So remember the Great Resignation and the Great Rethink, where workers after COVID went, I need meaning in my job now. I need it for it to matter personally.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
that was such a wonderful outcome. And the worker actually gained more power in the workplace. I think there's been a backlash, of course, where they could demand hybrid working and they could prove they could work just as effectively. And they weren't putting up with the conditions that were toxic before. They want the big demand now is psychosocial safety, where they feel they have the right to be honest about their workplace to their employer. And again, that's the relationship. So organisational psychology boils down to the fit. So the person and they're fit in the team, they're fit in the job, in the industry, in the organisation, in the career. It's all about that relationship and that fit that everything gets distilled down to in organisational psychology.
I definitely think it is once in a century adjustment that we've had, the COVID effect, in terms of how do we view that relationship between employees and managers and the organisation they work for, is once in a century change. You're absolutely right. And, it's for an organisation, you can go two ways. You can die because you don't adapt to it properly, or you can actually become a lot better, more resilient and more efficient if you're really smart and know how to deal with that.
That's right. Sorry to interrupt. Agile is what we're talking about now, that the agile organisations that did shift, that did really pivot and change and adapt are the ones that are thriving and becoming a learning organisation so that people are open to making mistakes, and that's part of learning. That's an agile, growing, developing organisation.